So, Carolyn, what I think is so important, and the reason I really wanted to talk about Chief and your strategy in my book, When Women Lead, is because you're taking a very intentional, strategic approach to bringing in women to the kinds of networks that you yourself felt like you needed. Talk to us a little bit about how this is more than just a club. You really think of this as a platform to help women advance.
Yeah, the idea of Chief, it came from a very personal place for myself and my co-founder, Lindsay, in that we were getting more senior in our careers. We were spending all of our time managing teams and mentoring others. And we no longer actually had a resource for ourselves. And so wanted to create a network focused on senior executive women, really under the mission of driving more women into positions of leadership, but keeping them there and really providing that support and leadership and growth that you need, even as a senior executive.
Yeah, I know, and there was some recent data out just this week about how senior female executives are leaving their positions because they're so frustrated. What to me is so essential is that this isn't just an opportunity for women to meet each other, but you create these cohorts for women to really coach each other and help each other. Tell us about some of the things that have come out of these cohorts and how you see that changing the dynamic of women when they're back in their jobs.
Yeah, so the primary service that we really built at Chief is what we call our core groups, which is this network of 10 individuals that we very specifically curate for each person. They meet on a monthly basis. There's an executive coach in the room, and it truly is just that place for you to be able to talk through your biggest professional and personal challenges, knowing that, the blend between work and life is, there is no difference anymore. And what has been amazing from an experience like that is how much it creates support, but also normalizes the challenges that so many women in the workplace face. And as you just stated, the McKinsey Women in the Workplace study came out last week. And this past year, there have been more executive women falling out of the workplace than ever before. And the proportion of women falling out relative to men is greater than it's ever been.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that companies have to identify that in order to take action to prevent their senior executives from leaving and really losing that talent. So I know you started off with this focus on in-person. During the pandemic, you transitioned to a virtual model. You still have these physical spaces, and you were expanding internationally. Talk to us about your plans for expansion and what that means for your member base.
Yeah, so we started Chief in 2019, so just 3 years ago in New York City. Just at the beginning of this year, we launched fully national. We're now 20,000 members, but have a wait list of close to 60,000. And a lot of that are people that are international and not able to join Chief yet. So we were very excited to be able to announce a few weeks ago that we are having our first international launch and going over into the UK later this year.
Yeah, really interesting. So talk to us about the kinds of impact you've seen from your Chief community. Have you seen more women decide to stay in the workforce instead of being part of that resignation, that great resignation that we're seeing? Are you seeing women start their own companies? What kind of impact, both near term and long term, can this kind of Chief community have?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many stories of the impact that we have seen through Chief. 80% of our members say they feel more supported in the work that they are doing. 70% say they feel more confident in the roles that they are actively in. 50% have seen a change in compensation or a change in job. But the stories that you hear, the anecdotes you hear of people who just whether it's all of the personal challenges that you are facing of trying to balance homeschooling while being a senior executive during the pandemic, and how much your core group and Chief helped you through that, to finding a new position through a connection at Chief, through starting your own business. So it's been really wonderful to see in just 3 years how much of an impact it can really have.
Yeah, and it fits into these overall questions and overall trends about return to work, post-pandemic, hybrid work, what the future of the workplace looks like. From your perspective, with all of these women in your community more on the wait list, what are you seeing in terms of these post-pandemic hybrid work trends? How does it impact women, and how are companies going to make sure that they're retaining and promoting those women at the same rate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that many companies have made big statements about wanting to get equal representation or better representation across different demographics in their senior leadership. And I hope that all of those companies are really thinking through what that means from a remote work perspective, from the policies that they put in place as we kind of go into a new way of working, because many women, many people of color are the people who are most wanting some of those changes that happened over the pandemic to sustain. And so I hope people are really starting to factor that into the policies that they have within their workplaces. But probably more importantly for us, just the way of working has changed considerably, where the office and the people that you work with were so much of your nucleus of community, where it really helped to overcome a feeling of loneliness and other things. As more and more companies are embracing hybrid or remote first, there's new ways that you need to build those communities. And I think Chief really provides a great mechanism for so many people and so many women to find a community where they might otherwise feel lonely in the office or other places.
Yeah, and I know being a purpose-driven company is really essential to the way you think about Chief. But I'm curious just to go back to this idea of navigating these challenges of the workforce. I've heard from a number of senior women, especially as I've been on book tour talking about this concern that as women may opt to stay home more, may opt more for hybrid work or just spending less time in the office because they do have those other responsibilities, that could really prevent them from advancing. How concerned are you that this phase of work that we're in right now could end up setting women further back? And can organizations and networks such as Chief help combat that?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that. So like we talked about before, that McKinsey Women in the Workplace study is actively saying that women are opting out at a greater rate than they ever had before. And, you know, there are 5.5 million women in the US who are VP level and above. Chief is just 20,000 members right now. And so it is truly our goal to create the most powerful network of women, to be able to create that support for a huge population in the workforce that is very vulnerable right now, and hope that companies really step forward and create the right policy support and sponsorship for women to get that support that they need.
And I know there's some data showing that women's groups at companies sometimes exclude women of color, and they help white women, but they do not help women of color. How are you addressing your own community and ensuring that it is inclusive of women in color? And also, what is your advice to companies to retain and support women of color in particular?
Yeah, so having an inclusive environment and community was important to Chief from day one. So if you look at what percentage of VP and above women are women of color, industry-wide, it is only 18% of VP level and above women. So it was our goal from day one to be double that, to be at 36%. And we are not quite there. We're at 35%, not the 36% that we want to get to. But it's been a really big focus for us as we've thought through this community and how we went about building it to make sure that we were reaching out, making sure that we were really building an inclusive community in that way. And I think that same tactic and methodology is really important for companies as well. It has to be just so intentional. It has to be something that is measured, that is monitored, not just around hiring people, but also what does inclusivity look like once you have people in the company, in the team, which is something that we've been focused on throughout the creation of Chief.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just looking at the future of Chief, obviously you have this big wait list, but I'm curious what your strategy is going to be in terms of working with companies, because from what I understand, a lot of the women who are members have their companies sponsor them, have them pay for that membership fee. How are you going to be increasingly thinking of yourself as a B2B company moving forward?
Yeah, so the vast majority of our members are sponsored by the company. So we build the relationship directly with her, and she goes and gets it sponsored in the same way that you would if you wanted to go to a conference and you were asking for them to send you to a conference. And for many companies, If you get an executive coach, it can sometimes be $30,000 for a 6-month engagement. And so the price of a 1-year membership for Chief feels like a great way to support women in their workplace to get some of that peer coaching, to get the access to the community, to get access to all of those resources. And so we've been really excited by how much companies have been not just willing, but actually stepping forward and saying we would really love to support the rising women leaders within our companies into Chief. So much so that they've actually started to reach out to us to say we'd love to partner directly with you and do more B2B than a B2C2B type of structure, which is what we had before. And so we're really starting to build out direct partnerships with companies in a time that I think is really important to do, because I think with everything that is going on in the economy, you could see women really hesitate to go and ask for that sponsorship. This is definitely a time where I think people are more considered in that, in knowing that companies are starting to look at what their costs are and everything else. And so it's really great to see companies starting to say, this is actually a time where we really need to invest in women. We need to continue that investment in stepping forward and doing more direct partnerships with us.